You won't take anyone else!
In some human, you'll now! Death for the Empire!
Space had many famous places. Bright trade hubs, powerful empires, legendary worlds. Varanthi Crossing was none of those. The station floated quietly in the dark space between three distant star systems. From far away, it looked like an old coin drifting in an endless ocean of black. Rust covered parts of its outer shell. Some docking lights flickered. Others had stopped working years ago. Ships still came. Cargo freighters, small trading vessels, refugee transports, even the occasional pirate ship pretending to be something legal. Nobody asked too many questions on Varanthi Crossing. That was the entire point. Inside the station, the corridors were always busy. Traders argued over prices. Mechanics repaired damaged engines. Exhausted travelers slept against cold metal walls while waiting for the next ship that might take them somewhere better. It was not a beautiful place, but it was useful. And for people like Marcus Cole, useful was enough. Marcus had been working the trade routes for almost 2 years now. His ship, an aging cargo hauler called the Drifter, was not impressive. The paint had faded. The engines complained every time he pushed them too hard. The navigation console occasionally flickered like it was thinking about retiring. Still, the ship worked, and Marcus needed it to. He was 36 years old. His brown hair had started thinning on the top of his head, something he tried not to think about. A loading accident 3 years earlier had left him with a permanent ache in his left knee. Long walks were never fun anymore. But hauling cargo did not require perfection. It required patience, strength, and the ability to stay awake during very long flights through empty space. Marcus had those. He also had something else. Absolutely no one waiting for him, anywhere. No family. No home planet calling him back. No great mission or heroic purpose. Just another job. On this particular evening, he had just finished unloading a shipment of water filtration units onto the station's middle deck. The job had taken 4 hours and paid barely enough to cover his docking fees.
Still, money was money.
Marcus signed the delivery confirmation on a cracked data pad and handed it back to the dock manager. The alien barely looked at him. Marcus shrugged. Normal day. He rolled his shoulders, stretched his back, and started the long walk toward docking bay 12 where the Drifter waited. There were 2 ways to get there. The first route followed the main corridors. It was bright, crowded, and relatively safe. It was also 20 minutes longer. Marcus glanced down the hallway that led to the lower decks. He sighed. His knee hurt. The lower decks were faster. Most people avoided them. The lights down there were dim. The air recyclers struggled to keep up, leaving the corridors smelling faintly of metal, oil, and old sweat. Illegal gambling dens hid behind unmarked doors. Black market dealers sold things that were definitely not approved by any government. Refugees slept in corners, building small shelters from cargo crates and broken equipment. Station security rarely visited. Bad things happened there. Quietly. Marcus stepped into the elevator anyway. A minute later, the doors opened onto the lower level. The corridor beyond was narrow and poorly lit. Exposed cables ran along the ceiling. Moisture dripped from old pipes and collected in small puddles on the floor. Marcus walked slowly, hands in his jacket pockets. A few figures watched him pass. An old alien wrapped in blankets. 2 thin refugees whispering to each other. A mechanic with grease covering 3 of his 6 hands. Nobody spoke. Everyone minded their own business. That was the rule down here. Marcus turned another corner and continued down a long dim hallway that ran beside the station's waste processing section. Halfway through it, he heard it. A scream.
High. Thin.
Sharp. The kind of sound that made every nerve in his body suddenly go still. Marcus stopped walking. For a moment the corridor was silent again. Then the scream came a second time.
There was no mistake now.
It was a child. Fear did not sound the same across every species, but panic did. Desperation did. Marcus slowly turned his head toward a narrow side passage, branching off the main corridor. The sound had come from there. His brain immediately supplied the logical answer. Not your problem. Lower decks meant trouble. Getting involved meant risk. And Marcus Cole was not a soldier. He had no armor, no weapon, no training, just a tired body and a bad knee. The smart thing would be to keep walking. Call security later. Let someone else handle it. Marcus stood there for 3 seconds. Then he sighed. Damn it. His feet carried him toward the side passage. The narrow corridor ended in a small storage area lit by a single flickering light. Marcus turned the corner.
And stopped.
8 figures stood inside the room. Large, insect-like bodies covered in black armor shells. 4 arms each. Their heads resembled massive beetles, with clusters of glowing red eyes that reflected the dim light. Fifth key. Slavers. Each one carried a curved serrated blade made from hardened chitin. And in the far corner, pressed against the metal wall, stood a child. She was small, maybe 5 years old by human standards. Her skin shimmered faint silver beneath the grime covering her clothes.
Atsari.
Even Marcus knew that species.
Tall.
Noble. Respected across half the galaxy. But this was no warrior. This was just a frightened little girl. Her wide violet eyes were filled with pure terror as the largest of the slavers slowly reached toward her. Marcus felt something inside his chest twist. He stepped forward into the room. Hey, he said. 8 red clusters of eyes turned toward him at the same time. Marcus swallowed once. Then he said the only thing that mattered. Leave the kid alone. The Vki leader clicked its mandibles. The translator in Marcus' ear converted the sound. Laughter. Human. The creature buzzed. Walk away. This does not concern you. Marcus looked at the shaking child, then back at the 8 armed slavers. He raised his empty hands. It does now. The leader slowly drew its blade. The other 7 followed. 8 weapons glinted in the dim light. Marcus felt his heart begin to pound. He could still run. The corridor behind him was open, but he didn't move. The first slaver stepped forward. And the fight began. The first slaver moved faster than Marcus expected. 1 second it was standing with the others. The next second it lunged forward, its serrated blade flashing through the dim light. Marcus had never trained for combat. No military drills. No fighting techniques. But hauling cargo for years had built strong instincts. Heavy crates taught you how to move quickly when something big and dangerous started falling. The blades slashed toward his stomach. Marcus threw himself sideways. The strike missed his gut, but the edge sliced across his left forearm. For a brief moment, he felt only cold. Then the pain arrived. Sharp, burning, immediate. Blood ran down his arm and dripped onto the metal floor. Marcus ignored it. There was no time to think about pain. Another Vki rushed him from the left. Marcus did the only thing he could think of. Instead of backing away, he charged forward. The slaver clearly did not expect that. Marcus grabbed one of the creature's arms. Its shell felt hard and cold under his grip. Using his full weight, Marcus shoved the alien sideways. The Vki slammed into one of its companions. Both crashed into the wall in a clatter of limbs and blades. Marcus gained 2 seconds. Just 2. That was enough for the third slaver to reach him from behind. The blade cut across Marcus's side, just below the ribs. His jacket split open. The metal teeth of the weapon tore into muscle beneath. Marcus gasped. The pain felt like fire spreading across his body. Warm blood soaked into his clothes and ran down his hip. 2 wounds already. 8 enemies still standing. Marcus stumbled backward. Behind him, he could hear the small, terrified breaths of the child. She was still there, still alive. That was all that mattered. The slavers surrounded him slowly now. Their red eyes watched him carefully. They were confused. Most creatures in the galaxy did not react like this when cut open. Most creatures panicked. Most creatures collapsed. Marcus Cole simply raised his fists. The next attack came from the right. A blade slashed across his thigh. It cut deep. Marcus's leg nearly buckled. He caught himself against the wall with one hand and forced his body upright again. His vision blurred for a second, then cleared. The slavers hesitated again. Blood was running down both of Marcus's arms now, pooling around his boots. And yet, he was still standing. One of the Vki tried to dart past him toward the child. Marcus reacted instantly. He grabbed the creature with both hands. The alien struggled, its 4 arms pushing against him. But Marcus was heavier, stronger. With a desperate shout, he lifted the creature off the ground and hurled it backward. The slaver crashed into 2 others. All 3 collapsed into a tangled heap. Marcus swayed. That movement had torn open the wound in his side even wider. His stomach twisted with nausea. For a moment, he thought he might throw up. Behind him, the little girl whimpered. Marcus straightened. "It's okay," he muttered weakly, even though he had no idea if she understood him. Another slaver rushed forward. This one drove its blade straight into Marcus's shoulder. The weapon punched deep into the muscle. White light exploded behind Marcus's eyes. His left arm instantly went numb. The slaver pulled the blade free. Marcus's arm dropped uselessly.
You will not take
at his
me!
side.
Your
5
defiance
wounds
is
now.
futile, you.
5.
The
Changes
remaining feet
everything!
formed a half circle around him. They were not laughing anymore. Their mandibles clicked softly in nervous patterns. The human should be dead. Every biological rule, they understood, said so. Creatures bled. Creatures collapsed. Creatures stopped moving. Marcus did none of those things. He leaned back against the wall. The small Sauri girl pressed against his legs. He could feel her trembling. Marcus lifted his one working fist. "Come on," he rasped. His voice was barely a whisper now. The next blade struck his back. Marcus twisted and slammed his elbow backward. Something cracked. He didn't know if it was the alien's shell or his own bone. He didn't care. But the movement exposed his side again. Another blade slashed across his shoulder blade. This one cut deep. Deep enough to scrape bone. Marcus screamed. It was the first sound of real pain he had made. A raw, broken sound that echoed through the storage room. Still, he did not fall. He pressed himself harder against the wall, keeping the child hidden behind him. Suddenly, he felt something tugging his jacket. The girl. She had grabbed the back of his coat with both small hands. She was holding on to him, like he was the only safe thing left in the universe. Marcus felt a strange surge of strength rise through his body, even as darkness crept into the edges of his vision. The Vki leader stepped forward slowly now. Its blade was dark with Marcus's blood. It studied him carefully, like a scientist observing something impossible. The human should not still be alive. But he was. The leader raised its weapon. Then it drove the blade into Marcus's lower back. The pain was beyond anything Marcus had ever experienced. For a moment, the world simply vanished. There was only white light and silence. Then the blade pulled free. Marcus's legs gave out. He dropped to his knees. The impact barely registered. Blood covered the floor around him now. His heart hammered desperately inside his chest. He knew the truth. He was dying, but he was still between them and the child. With the last strength left in his body, Marcus reached one arm behind him. His hand touched the girl's small shoulder. Gently, he pushed her deeper into the corner. "You're okay, kid," he whispered. "I got you." The slaver leader stepped forward again, blade raised for the final strike. And suddenly, the corridor exploded with light. 6 station security drones roared around the corner. Their spotlights filled the room with blinding white beams. An automated voice thundered through the speakers. "Drop your weapons. Security enforcement active." The Vki reacted instantly. They scattered like insects. Within seconds, they vanished into the maze of lower deck corridors. The drones chased after them, but the slavers knew the tunnels too well. Marcus barely noticed. The bright lights felt distant, like he was watching them from underwater. He looked down at his hands. They were completely covered in blood. Then he turned his head slightly. The little girl was still there.
Alive.
Unhurt. Her violet eyes were wide with tears. But there was not a single scratch on her silver skin. Marcus smiled. A small, tired smile. The kind a man gives when the only thing that mattered worked. Then he collapsed forward onto the cold metal floor. And everything went dark. Behind him, the little Sauri girl opened her mouth and screamed. But this time, it was not a scream of fear. "Kia main part 3 leakin'? Rocket." The medical team arrived 4 minutes after Marcus hit the floor. On most stations, For minutes would be considered fast. On Varanthi Crossing, it was almost a miracle. The lower decks were a maze of corridors, storage tunnels, and forgotten maintenance passages. Even station staff sometimes got lost down there. But the emergency call had been marked urgent. Very urgent. When the medical crew reached the storage area, the first thing they saw was blood. A lot of blood. It covered the floor. It stained the walls. It had soaked into the human lying face down in the middle of the room. Next to him crouched a small, silver child. Her hands were pressed against his back, as if she could somehow keep the blood inside his body just by holding him together. Her fingers were red all the way to the wrists. The lead doctor froze for half a second. Her name was Dr. Thess-san. She was a Finari physician, tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 6 delicate fingers on each hand. For 11 years, she had worked in the emergency ward of Varanthi Crossing. She had treated plasma burns, broken bones, stabbing victims, even the occasional pirate who had lost a fight. But she had never seen anything like this. She quickly activated her medical scanner. The device hummed softly as it analyzed the human body. Dr. Thessen's stomach dropped. 8 major lacerations, 3 of them deep enough to reach muscle and bone. Massive blood loss. His blood pressure was dangerously low. His heart was beating far too fast, struggling to push what little blood remained through his body. By every medical standard she knew, this man should already be dead. Get him on the stretcher, she ordered sharply. The team moved quickly. They lifted Marcus onto a hovering medical stretcher and rushed toward the station's emergency ward. The little Tsari girl ran beside them the entire way. No one had the heart to stop her. Inside the operating room, the real battle began. For 6 hours, Dr. Thess-san and her team worked without pause. They sealed the worst wounds with pressure gel. They stitched torn muscles back together. Damaged blood vessels were carefully repaired. 4 liters of synthetic blood were pumped into Marcus's veins. Twice his heart faltered. Twice the machines forced it to beat again. When the surgery finally ended, Dr. Thess-san stepped outside the operating room and slowly removed her gloves. They were covered in dried blood. She stared at them quietly, because something about this case did not make sense. According to galactic biology records, humans were not considered impressive. They had no natural armor, no venom, no regenerative limbs. Their skin was soft. Their bones could break. On paper, humans were one of the more fragile intelligent species in known space. But the body she had just operated on told a completely different story. Even before treatment had begun, his blood had started clotting around the wounds. His immune system had flooded the injuries with defensive cells at an incredible speed. His muscles were dense and powerful, packed tightly around surprisingly heavy bones. And most astonishing of all, his brain had remained conscious through a level of trauma that would have shut down the nervous system of almost any other species. He had stayed awake. He had stayed on his feet. Dr. Thess-san walked slowly to a terminal and opened her medical log. After a moment, she began typing. Human pain tolerance and blood loss endurance exceed current xenobiological models. Immediate revision of species capability assessments recommended. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, a very different situation was unfolding. Station security had finally reviewed the corridor footage. The chief of security watched the recording 3 times in silence. He was a heavy-set Thenian with gray skin and decades of military experience behind him. He had served in 3 different wars before taking this quiet station job. He had seen bravery. He had seen stupidity. He had seen soldiers make last stands against impossible odds. But this was something else. The footage showed a civilian cargo hauler stepping into a hallway. Unarmed, unarmored, facing 8 slavers, then refusing to fall. The chief leaned back slowly in his chair. "This human is insane," he muttered. But there was something else in his voice too. Respect. He flagged the footage as priority diplomatic material. Then he attached the recording of the child's scream. The system had automatically tagged it with a cultural translation. Tsari honor cry. A sound made only when witnessing a sacrifice so great that it must be remembered. The file was transmitted immediately to the Tsari fleet currently searching the sector. The response came quickly. First, Silence. For 3 days, the Tsari communication channels had been overflowing with anger, military threats, and desperate search orders. Now, every single channel went completely quiet. No messages. No signals. Nothing. Then the station's long-range sensors detected something. 3 ships breaking away from the Tsari fleet. 3 warships. Each one larger than the entire station itself. They jumped into hyperspace. Destination: Varanthi Crossing. Maximum speed. The station administrator nearly fainted when he heard the news. When Tsari warships arrived somewhere, things usually ended badly. Emergency meetings were called. Advisors panicked. Security teams were placed on alert. But when the 3 massive warships finally appeared above the station, something unexpected happened. They did not power their weapons. Instead, the lead ship sent a single communication request.
Calm.
Formal. Respectful. They asked for 2 things. First, confirmation that the Tsari child was safe. Second, the location of the human who had protected her. Down in the recovery ward, Marcus Cole lay unconscious in a hospital bed. Machines beeped softly beside him. Synthetic blood slowly dripped through a tube into his arm. His body was working hard to repair itself. In the small chair beside his bed, the little Tsari girl had fallen asleep. She refused to leave. A nurse had wrapped her in a blanket. Her small silver hand rested on the edge of the mattress. Her fingers lightly touched the blanket covering Marcus, as if she needed to make sure he was still there. Outside the room, heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Slow. Perfectly synchronized. The medical staff looked up and froze. 12 tall figures turned the corner, each one over 7 feet tall, each one wearing deep blue armor etched with glowing silver symbols. Their skin shimmered like polished metal. Their eyes reflected the light like steel. The Chivalry warriors had arrived, and at their head walked the most feared Tsari warrior in the galaxy. High Commander Dven Sheen-Kaler, the father of the child Marcus had saved. Marcus Cole slowly opened his eyes. At first everything felt strange, heavy. His body ached from head to toe. Not a sharp pain, but a deep, dull throbbing that lived inside his muscles and bones. The ceiling above him was gray metal, a medical bay. Machines beside the bed beeped in slow, steady
You won't
rhythms.
take anyone else!
Marcus blinked
It's
again.
unhuman,
Then
you'll
he
now
noticed something unusual.
for the
Banners.
Empire.
Long sheets of dark fabric hung from the walls and ceiling. Deep indigo cloth, decorated with silver symbols that shimmered softly in the light. Marcus frowned slightly. He was fairly certain hospital rooms did not normally come with decorations. Then he noticed the smell. Something was burning nearby. Not fire, but incense. A thin line of fragrant smoke drifted upward from a small metal bowl in the corner of the room. The scent was warm and calming, something like cedar wood after rain. Marcus slowly turned his head and froze. There were 12 warriors in the room. They sat in a perfect circle around his bed. Each one was enormous, over 7 feet tall. Their silver skin reflected the light like polished metal. Deep blue armor covered their bodies, etched with ancient glowing symbols. They were completely still,
Silent.
watching him. Marcus stared at them. They stared back. For several long seconds, nobody moved. Finally, Marcus cleared his dry throat. His voice came out rough. "Am I in trouble?" Outside the room, a human nurse quickly covered her mouth to stop herself from laughing. Inside the room, the warriors did not react. Then one of them moved. He was the largest of the 12. His armor was darker and heavily scarred, marked by countless battles. A pale white scar ran down the side of his face. His steel-colored eyes studied Marcus carefully. The warrior stood and walked slowly toward the bed. Even through the fog of painkillers, Marcus could tell this was someone important. The warrior stopped beside him. Then something unexpected happened. He knelt. All 11 of the other warriors suddenly inhaled sharply at the same time. The sound filled the room like wind rushing through stone. The kneeling warrior reached to his side and drew a blade. It was long and curved. The dark metal seemed to swallow the light around it. Carefully, respectfully, he placed the blade across Marcus's lap. Marcus stared at it, then back at the warrior. I feel like I missed something important, he muttered weakly. The warrior spoke. His voice was deep and calm. My name is Dven Sheen Kaler. I am High Commander of the Chivalry, and I am the father of the child you saved. Marcus blinked slowly. The little girl, she's yours? Yes, Dven replied quietly. Valeth is my youngest daughter. His eyes never left Marcus's face. She was taken from us 3 days before you found her. We searched across 3 sectors of space. My fleet was preparing for war to bring her home. He paused, then continued. Instead, we received a recording. Dven's voice lowered slightly. It showed a human, unarmed, untrained, alone, standing between my daughter and 8 slavers. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Yeah, but... It showed that human, Dven continued, taking blade after blade into his body, refusing to fall, refusing to move aside, shielding a child with his own flesh. The room was silent. Dven placed one large silver hand gently on the ancient blade. In our culture, he said, there is an honor called Velthrin. It means one who shields another without obligation. It is the highest honor our people can give. Marcus raised an eyebrow. In 12,000 years, Dven continued, it has been given 43 times. Never to someone outside our species. He pushed the blade slightly closer to Marcus. Until now. Marcus stared at the weapon. His mind struggled to process everything. Finally, he spoke quietly. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know any of this. She was just scared. And she was a kid. Dven nodded slowly. I know. That is why the honor is yours. The room grew very quiet. You had no duty, Dven said. No orders. No training. No code demanding sacrifice. You are a cargo hauler. You move boxes across space. And when the moment came, you chose to stand. Marcus swallowed hard. Dven's voice softened. My blade is yours, Marcus Cole. My strength answers your call. You will never stand alone again. Marcus looked down at the ancient weapon resting across his blanket. His eyes suddenly burned. He blinked quickly. Too late. A single tear slipped down his cheek and landed softly on the dark metal blade. Thank you, he whispered. A small sound came from the doorway. Marcus turned his head. Valeth stood there. The little Tsari girl looked very different now. Her silver hair had been braided neatly. She wore clean clothes. The fear that once filled her violet eyes had faded. She looked shy but determined. Dven gave a small nod. Valeth walked slowly into the room. Past the silent warriors. Past
Your
the
defiance
machines
is
and
futile,
banners.
human.
She reached the bed and looked up at Marcus.
You will regret
Then
this.
carefully climbed onto the mattress beside him. She avoided his bandages and
Distance
tubes,
now!
settling gently against his uninjured side. Her small head rested against his shoulder. Thank you, she said softly. The translator turned her words into English. Marcus lifted his one working arm and gently placed his hand on her head. Anytime, kid, he whispered. Within minutes, she fell asleep beside him. Around the bed, the 12 legendary warriors lowered their heads in silent respect. Marcus closed his eyes again. He was alive. She was safe. And somehow, that ordinary cargo hauler from Earth had just changed the way the entire galaxy saw humanity. Far away, across thousands of worlds, one message slowly spread through every network and every military archive. A simple warning. Never give a human something to protect, because they will bleed, they will suffer, and they will never, ever walk away.
You will not disobey!
Insolent human!
This ends now! You won't take me alive!
You have no choice, human! Then what?